We obviously are here talking about cash flow and how to think, for lack of a better word. And I am particularly excited to talk to you about this because if I had to boil down the principles of success in business in any way, shape or form, it's hard to pick one thing. But if I had to, these two topics would be right up there. Certainly how we think, what forms our thinking, and how we manage our money, which sounds, like they are big topics. So we've only got an hour, so we're going to be, somewhat glossing over some of the things, but we're going to get into a bit of detail as well. And I want to make sure today that I give you some real tools to be able to walk away with to make a difference in both of these areas in your business. Now, before we do get into the nuts and bolts of today's, just a couple of tips, I guess I want to give you to make sure that you get the most from our session today. And they're really three principles which don't just apply to our session today, but really they do apply to life, if you like. The first one is that you're going to invest an hour here going through these things, and I would encourage you as much as possible to resist the temptation to multitask. I know that when you're on a webinar, there's no one looking at you, seeing if you are actually paying attention. And at the end of the day, it's up to you whether you want to or not. However, I do know that our brains, as much as we think we can do multiple things at once, the truth is we're not very good at it. And if you would like a chance to see if that's true or prove me wrong, there's a great exercise you can do, which we won't do right now because it takes a bit of time. But if you were to write down, time yourself with a stopwatch and time yourself writing the numbers 1 to 26, and then time yourself writing out the letters of the alphabet, A through Z. And if you add those two times together and get that total time, so the total time it takes you to write the letters 1 to 26, and the total time it takes you to write the alphabet, and then do it again, but mix them up. So do 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, and so on, and time how long that takes. Most people will not be able to do it as fast the second way. They'll be way faster the first way because our brain works well when we can focus on one thing at a time. And that's a little way of sort of tricking your mind to access left and right brain simultaneously, if you like. So that's the first thing. If you're going to be here, be here. There will be a recording, well, anyway, up to you. Second one is I encourage you to have an open mind. There's probably some things I'm going to talk about that you may have heard before. There's a principle for us humans that sometimes it takes us a couple of times to hear something, or we might hear something and we're in a different spot or a different part of life, or you're hearing it from a different source, and all of a sudden it can mean something different to you. And the thing about business, the thing about being more successful, having better cash flow or whatever it might be, is we're often not looking to make massive differences in the way that we do things, but we want to just pick up little bits here and there that can cause an exponential difference in our results. And a great analogy for this is if you've ever seen a horse race or heard of a horse race, I'm sure you have, the difference between first and second, can sometimes just be, they say a nose, right? Tiny little bit. But what's the difference in prize money? It's enormous. And likewise, being in business, managing your cash flow or whatever it may be, the difference between results, let's say it's in sales, right? The difference between making a sale or not making a sale is enormous. It's all or nothing. And it can just be small little things that make a difference as to whether you make that sale or you don't. And we're going to cover some of those things today in cash flow management. There could just be a couple of tiny little things you pick up today that make a world of difference. So we're not looking for the revolutionary idea, the big secret that we don't know. We're rarely looking for that. We're mostly looking for that little distinguishing point that's going to tip me over the edge, put me in that 2% difference that causes like a 15% difference in your results. The first two principles, choose to focus, be open. The third principle, which I will exaggerate and say that if you get nothing else from this session, get this one. I think beyond everything we're going to cover in mindset, in cash flow, this is, to me, the number one principle in business, or call it life success. And, I'm going to tell you a quick story before I share with you what that principle is. There's a guy I worked with very briefly. His name was Mike. And Mike was a business broker. Business brokers buy and sell businesses, or help people to buy and sell their business. And Mike was having some challenges with salespeople. So he approached me and said, listen, can you give me some help? I'm having some troubles with salespeople. Oh, sure. I'll have a chat with you. So we sat down and I started to ask Mike what was going on. And it turned out Mike had 3 salespeople work for him. So I said, well, tell me about the first one. And he said, listen, he looked great. I brought him in, looked good on paper. I sent him on a project up north and the guy never came back. I thought, oh, that's strange. But anyway, tell me about the next one. And he said, well, she looked great too. On paper, resume was awesome. I brought her in and within 3 months, she'd found a better opportunity. And I thought, okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here. And I said, well, what about the third one, Mike? And he said, well, he's been with me for 1.5 years. And I said, well, that's great. And he said, well, no, he hasn't sold anything. I thought, okay, that's a problem too. And through this conversation, I'm getting a feel for what Mike's about. And so I look at him. I said, Mike, in these 3 situations, what's the one consistent factor? And he thought about it for a while. And he said, well, Jamie, they're all idiots. And I thought, well, maybe. But Mike, I think there's something else. I think there's something else we're missing here. Well, now looking him right in the eyes, I said, Mike, what else is the common factor in these 3 hires? And he looked at me and he said, Jamie, are you trying to tell me that it's me? What Mike was having a hard time realizing is there is only one common factor in our businesses, in our lives, and that's us, right? So this is this notion that I refer to as radical responsibility. I'm just going to go to the flip chart for a second. My slide's taking a second to catch up. So if we think about our business and our life, all the time there are, let's go to black. Well, let me back up. There's a formula developed by a guy called Jack Canfield. Jack Canfield wrote a book called Chicken Soup for the Soul, and Jack talks about it like this. He says E plus R equals O, where E is the event, R is the response, or our response. And so what do you think the O is? The O is the outcome. So we can't always control the events, but sometimes we can. We can have input on those, but what we can always control is our response to those events, right? Therefore, we can always influence the outcome. Now, sometimes we don't always get the outcome we want, but that outcome becomes another event. We get to go again. And so there's always a point of choice. But what gets in the way here, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this around mindset, is after every event, whether that's someone talking to you, a customer, whether it's when you look at your bank statement, whatever it might be, we tell ourselves a story and we give that event meaning. And by doing that, we've then trained ourselves how to respond to that meaning, and we sort of start to fulfill or develop patterns in our life and our behaviour. And so what I'm suggesting is that we want to be willing to sit back and explore what are all the different possible responses that I could be choosing to any given event that might give me better outcomes. Because this is our point of control, right? We can control our response. We can't control this. So this is the notion of radical responsibility. We choose to take 100% ownership on that choice of here. Sometimes we're reacting, not responding, but that's still a choice. So that's what I say to you, if you don't get anything else from this, I really believe that this principle, if we choose to adopt it and live by it, can be an absolute game changer. Can be very difficult to do. And at the risk of elaborating on the point too much, I really believe that it has to be black and white. There can't be any grey areas of, oh, this is my responsibility, that is not. You know, responsibility is simply the ability to respond. And if we're willing to look at it in black and white ways, then we're always going to look at ourselves first. And we're always going to ask the question, how can I change? What can I do differently? And when we do that, we put ourselves in a position of power. If any time we're looking at what's happening out there, and now is a great example of this, right? In this COVID environment where a lot of events have happened that we can't control, right? But we haven't lost our ability to respond. We might need to be more creative. We might need to upskill in different ways, but that's on us. But if we want to be tempted to say, oh, it's because of, you know, coronavirus, or it's because of what the government's done, or it's because my customers aren't coming in, or whatever it might be, all of a sudden we give the power away to those other people and events. And then we start to operate from a victim mindset. So it's that choice to be the one in power, the one who is in control, or the one who is being controlled. And so if we're willing to look at it very black and white like that, then we're always in a position of power. And this can be a tough thing to do, because when things aren't going well, as humans, we like to protect our ego, and we like to, you know, look outside of ourselves and like to, you know, point the finger. We're all human. You know, I'm sitting here talking to you about this principle. I'm not going to pretend that sometimes I don't fall into that state. Of course I do. It's not a question of whether you do or not. It's how long you stay there, and how soon are you going to, you know, shift gears around that to put yourself back in that position of control. All right. Enough about that. We're going to talk a little more about thinking in just a little while. Before I do, let me introduce myself and my team. For those that don't know who I am, and we are now 13 minutes in, I haven't told you that, but I'm Jamie Cunningham, and the owner and founder of Sales Up Business Coaching. This is my team, my marvelous team. We're a small team. We are spread out all over the globe. Melina is my right hand. She does so much in the business, but her trademark is she's an HR professional. So she does a lot of HR work with our clients, both in Canada and in Australia. So she's in Canada. I used to live in Canada. We have businesses in Canada. The coaching business, we still have clients over there, and other business interests. Kieran is in New Zealand, so she runs our strategic communications. And that's us. We're a small team. So, you know, I won't go into a lot of detail about how I got to where I am, but needless to say, like and I alluded to this, we are involved in many businesses, and I work very hard to walk my talk. And the things I'm going to share with you today are things that I'm doing in my own businesses and with my clients. So we work with small, medium, you know, up to 50 employees sort of businesses, helping business owners essentially become better business owners, giving them the tools, the frameworks, the thinking, challenging some of their assumptions, holding them accountable, all that sort of good stuff to help them to develop the business that they dreamed of having when they started. And our underlying philosophy or thinking is that every business owner has the opportunity and ability to create and craft whatever business they want to help in their life design. And that businesses are the vehicle to create change in our societies. Free enterprise, it has no boundaries apart from the legal and ethical and standards around tax and all that sort of stuff. You know, apart from those, there are no boundaries. So there's only boundaries in our thinking and our ability to create. So I'm very passionate about entrepreneurship. I'm very passionate about helping business owners to do better, because a lot of people are sacrificing a lot to sometimes get back very little, and I love helping them change that situation. So with that, let's do a little mental warm-up. What we can do is, on a piece of paper and with a pen, I want you to write down the first 3 words that come to mind when I give you the following 5 words. So don't think too much about it, just the first words that pop into your mind. And the first word is money. Write down the first 3 words that come to mind when I say money. I'm going to keep moving pretty quickly here, so just write down what first comes in. Next word is business. Well, the first 3 words come to mind when I say the word business. Next one is your business. What are the first 3 words that come to mind when I say your business? Next one, making sales. What are the first three words that come to mind when I say making sales? Could be interesting if your business is currently shut down. Think about it when you're open. And lastly, profit. Profit. Okay, and I'm going to share with you just in a little while why we did that. So it's not a pointless exercise. I don't know if Henry Ford is actually the appropriate attribute to this quote. Whether you think you can, you think you can't, I'm sure you've heard this one. Either way, you're right. You know, just saying that, you know, what runs through our brain, our perceptions and beliefs and so on, it's what causes our reality, and it matters. It absolutely matters. So my goal here in talking about mindset and thinking is hopefully to give you some tools, give you some new frameworks to think about things, but more than anything is to raise your awareness or give you a moment just to sit back and reflect. You know, there's no right and wrong here at all. However, there is the opportunity to be introspective and challenge some of our existing thinking. Because as humans, we all get into ruts. We get into ruts of thinking that become repetitive. And as that happens, then our results become repetitive. If we want to change our results, we're going to change our thinking. So to that end, let me just share a bit of a framework with you I call the circle of choice. And if we look at, you know, the endpoint thinking your life, and you can think of this either as your life to date or the life you want to create, sort of in a present or past tense or a future tense, the way that gets created is through these following choices. So number one, it comes from the actions you choose to take. Right, if you choose to pick up the phone and make some sales calls or you don't, that has consequences. And your actions come from your choices, right? First, you've got to make a choice to pick up the phone before you actually do it, right? But the choices we make come from the questions that we ask, right? So firstly, we might have to ask the question, you know, what are the best things I can be doing right now to drive my business? If we don't ask that question, we may not have come up with the choice to pick up the phone and make the call. And our questions come from the quality of our thoughts, right? And so if we don't know any ways to grow business, we probably won't ask that question. So therefore, the quality of our thoughts come from our education. So if we've never studied how to grow businesses, you can see where I'm going here. Everything comes from a foundation. And your education is largely from your environment. And just sort of maybe expand on education there. I'm not talking about where you went to school, right? That education was like the warm-up. I'm talking about what you're doing now, how you're educating yourself, and same with your environment. So your environment is the people you hang around, your physical environment, it's your personal body, your environment, it's what you listen to on the radio, it's what you watch on TV, all the social media, like however you consume content is all part of your environment. So if you're around or in an environment of people who are proactive, thinking, growing, you're more likely to do those things, and hence this circle is probably going to have an upward spiral. And if you're on this call today, I suspect you're probably one of those people. But each of these points are points that we can affect. We can create change with these. So to look at that another way, formula for success is made up of three things. It's B times do equals have, where we have the have is the results or the goals, again, future or past tense, right? The results we've got to date or the goals we want to achieve in the future. So it's what you do and it's how you think. And I'm going to give you an example of this. So if I was, let's say I was sitting down to bake a cake or bake a loaf of bread or whatever it is, and you gave me the instructions on how to do that, and you also gave that to Gordon Ramsay, who's right next to me. So we each had the exact same list of what to do. We knew the actions, right? But I can guarantee you the output of those two things is going to be completely different between mine and Gordon Ramsay's, because our level of thinking and our skills are completely, like who we are different in the context of baking a cake. And so it is with business, right? Sometimes we want to go out there and want to do more, we want to do. that's definitely valuable. Like we absolutely have to take action and be prepared to step up. The real exponential result comes when we want to come back and work on us, work on our B, work on our, and it's not just the thinking as I'm about to show you. So let's expand on that. What is the B? The B is comprised of your skills. And I talked about me versus Gordon Ramsay. There would definitely be some skill gaps there, differences in skill. The mindset, how we think, so skill set times mindset equals our potential, like what we're capable of. And then we take our potential, and it's our potential times our state. And our state is how you feel in the moment. So if Gordon Ramsay had woken up and he had a fight with his spouse before he came to the cooking competition between he and myself, maybe I would outperform him. Maybe my inadequate cooking skills would stack up on the day because his mind's elsewhere, right? He's just not in the zone. But so that potential times our state is our true effectiveness. So when we look at that, there's 3 areas that we have power to improve on. It's our state. We can be proactive around our state at the moment. It's our mindset, how we think, and then our skill set, the skills that we've got. So what affects our state? Actually, no, before I dive into that, I'm going to just talk about the things that you wrote down at the very start. Let me stop the screen here. So you wrote down the meaning of some words. The reason you did that is because the major components that underpin how you think, let me put it this way. If you are represented by an iceberg, we know an iceberg has 10% showing above the water and about 90% below, and you're kind of the same. What we see of you and everyone else up above, we see your actions, we see your decisions, and overall we see your behaviour. They're really products of what's below the surface. So what's below the surface, we've already talked a little bit, is around your skills, your values, your beliefs, right? And this is the one that you sort of explored a little bit earlier when you wrote down your the 3 words that came up around those 5 words that were shared. What you were spitting out there was a reflection of your beliefs around those things. And with beliefs, again, there's no right or wrong around beliefs, but there is helpful and unhelpful around beliefs. So if you go back and you look at some of those things, you know, look at them around sales, look at them around money and around your business, and arguably you'd want those beliefs to be helpful, right? Because you probably want those things to be better in your life. And if you do, then you want helpful beliefs around them being better. So just go back and have a look at what you wrote down there and ask yourself, are they helpful or unhelpful beliefs? And beliefs are just things that we think are true. And most beliefs are up for question, right? In any moment, any day, I'll go back to here. This one here, we're talking about the story. The story is all shaped around your beliefs, right? So if an event happens and 5 different people see that event, there's probably going to be 5 different stories because there's 5 different flavors of belief around that event, whether that's around people's behavior or whatever it might be. We've all got stories we tell ourselves, and those stories are these beliefs. So be really willing to challenge these, really willing to challenge what you've got down there and make sure they're as helpful as they can be to help you get to the goals that you want to get to. But the last one here, second last one, which I think is just absolutely gold, and one that's quite tangible, is called your identity. And your identity is the definition that you have for yourself. It's, you know, if I was to ask you to write down how you would define yourself, it's what you would write down. I am this, I am that, I'm a good father, I'm great at maths, I am a procrastinator, I am whatever it is, right? You've got words that are sitting there. You may not always be conscious of them, but they're absolutely there. And the interesting thing about your identity is it massively affects your behavior, right? If I didn't see myself as someone who's capable of being a good chef, I'm probably not ever going to be as good as Gordon Ramsay, regardless of my underlying talent and skills, right? Because I just don't see it. I don't define myself that way. And so it is in business, right? If we don't see ourselves as good at managing cash, if we don't see ourselves as good business people, as good salespeople, if we've got negative identities around that or no identity, then we're really going to struggle in those areas. So there's a notion that says if you want someone's behavior to change, help them see themselves differently. We see it with kids. If you help kids to understand their leaders and they've got an ability to have a greater level of responsibility and influence on others, you might see the behavior shift away in terms of day-to-day stuff. And we see this all the time with business days. This is an area I work on quite a lot with my clients. The last one is, which we've already touched on a little bit, is environment. And I'm going to talk about that with relation to state as well. So, physical environment, our relationship environment, who we hang around, that all matters. But I share that with you because you can use that like an inventory. And okay, if I want my behavior to change, if I want my thinking to change, maybe I need to change some of these. Maybe I need some more skills in cash flow management, which we're going to talk about. Maybe I need some more skills in sales. Maybe I need some more skills in leadership. Maybe I need whatever it is. Values, that's often shows up when we're feeling a level of dissatisfaction when we're not acting in alignment with those values. Okay, I just got a message. My internet connection is not stable, so I hope you can all see me okay. Beliefs I've already talked about. Identity I've already talked about. The environment, underpins all that. An iceberg is not going to stay an iceberg very long if you put it in the Sahara Desert. So now I'm just looking, I see there are some comments going there, so I haven't looked at those so far. I'll do my best to glance over those as I go and make sure I'm addressing those. But I should have mentioned, if you've got questions as we go, please throw them on the chat. But I'll certainly open those up for questions as we go, or at the end, sorry. And there's also, you should see a Q&A section on your screen as well. Feel free to throw stuff in there. Okay, now back to our slide. So I was talking about the three things that affect our effectiveness are our state, our skill set, and our mindset. So what affects our state? State is obviously how we feel in the moment. Well, there's a number of things. So we've got our relationships, our physical health, what we choose to focus on, our physiology, how we stand and like how our body is in the moment, and lastly, our language. Our relationships, like if we've got toxic relationships that are going on for us, the closer those are to us, the more impact they're going to have on our state. The further away they are, the less impact. But it's just, if you've got those, then do what you need to do to fix them. Come back to radical responsibility. Because particularly your closest relationships, when they're tight, it's like a magnifying effect. The analogy or the principle that is at play here, if you think about a planet orbiting the sun, the ones that have the strongest sense of gravity can orbit the fastest because there's that force holding it in. And like it is with our closest relationships, when that force is tight, like the gravity's strong, we can pivot really fast. We can go really fast and we're not going to fly off. But when that's not strong, then we've got to be really careful. We're going to be slow and we're going to be more tentative. So relationships are a really powerful way to bring intense energy to what you can do. Physical health, obviously, doing the sleep, diet, exercise, that stuff's critical. And the one there that is most important, I believe, is sleep. Sleep is the lead domino. When you're well rested, it's easy to make good food choices. It's easy to go and exercise. It's easy just to, your chemical balance is more where it needs to be. Point of focus is something that we can absolutely affect. That's if you catch yourself focusing on the wrong things, maybe you're spending too much time on social media or reading the COVID numbers too much, whatever it might be. Maybe you've got some negative people that shift you and their conversations aren't helpful. Really take charge of that and say, I'm only going to choose to, it's not being the blind optimist and, only wanting to listen to good stuff. But part of it is, be very careful with the seeds that you want to plant there. The physiology is how you hold yourself. Right now, I'm standing up to deliver this. Why am I standing up? Because standing up and having my spine straight and so forth changes my energy, right? I work hard to smile. Smiling makes me feel good. So all these things, how we hold our body, how we breathe, it all affects how we feel. And the language is both the internal and external. So it's the self-talk inside. Like, what are we choosing to say to ourselves? And how aware are we of that language that's being used? So, that's a whole topic unto itself, but your internal and external language will massively affect how you think and feel. So a toolkit here, which is a little bit of a recap on some things I've just covered, but, the relationships, we talked about that. Do what you need to do there and take responsibility for it. It's not other people's job to make your relationships great. You're a player in that. The trap most people fall into when there's a challenge there is that they think the other person contributes 50%. So, it's only up to them to do 50%. That's where the radical responsibility should give you a little bit of slap around and say, no, you're 100%. Like, you have always choices to create change. So step up into that one. That's a good challenge. Health, covered that one. Sleep, exercise, do the right things there. Keep the sugar out of your diet. Meditation. Meditation, if you are already a meditator, then I'll be preaching the converted. Those who don't meditate usually fall into one or two camps. The one camp is you think it's crazy, it's woo-woo, and why would you ever do that? The other one is being mean to try it, have tried it, it's hard, it's difficult, probably should do more of it. But wherever you sit, all I can say is that the mindset part, the thinking, is really becoming more aware, more conscious of what's going in here. And meditation gives you the stillness or the presence or simply the awareness around that. And it's like a muscle, right? This looking at the thinking and examining and wanting to become stronger in your thinking is no different to becoming stronger in a physical muscle. And the way you have to do that for a physical muscle is to work it. And that's a practice. You got to do something. And meditation is that for thinking. It's in times where you're challenging your thinking, if you don't have a practice like meditation, it's very hard to think your way out of these situations. So meditation is a real tool. It gives you a real tangible way to grow and reflect and bring some of the thinking habits that you might be wanting to change. And the last toolkit here is be very conscious about what you put into your mind. That's either through what you're listening to, what you're reading, what you're watching, who you're hanging around. So I have a no news policy, even in this environment where there's a lot of changes going on. I've got select sources I'll go to get up to speed on the business stuff, to make sure I know what we can and can't do and what government incentives and help is out there. But that's it, right? I'm not listening to the numbers and how much they're going up and all the drama that goes on. Like, there's a lot of drama, and I know people are hurting, right? There are people whose lives are being affected by this 100%. So my actions here are not to dismiss that or pretend that's not going on. But if I'm not in a position to change something, then infecting my thinking with all the potential negativity or drama is not serving how I am and with the help and effect that I can have in the marketplace, my business, with my clients, whatever it is. So it is putting yourself into a little bubble, the right sort of bubble to some degree. That's my belief. I'm not saying you have to take that on board, but I would highly advocate that. Okay, let's dive into some numbers, shall we? I'm going to skip over this next one about flow because we need to get into the numbers side. But flow is where your state, so I'm going to skip it now, I'm going to talk to it. Flow is where you find that magic spot between being in the right state, in alignment with your values, and playing to your strengths. So the more you can put yourself in that sort of position in your business and your personal practices around state management, the more you're going to be in that sweet spot of flow. Now, I didn't warn you at the beginning, but you've probably worked out all right. I'm going to cover a lot of stuff, and we're going to do it inside an hour, so I'm moving fast. That's not to say that anything that I'm skipping over quickly is not important. Any of these things I've talked about, I could talk about for a day or two. But my goal here is to give you a taste and hopefully raise your awareness on some areas where you might want to dive deeper and get some take a further look at, maybe take away the few things I've covered already. But we're going to do the same in money. So the things we're going to cover here are four main things. We're going to look at cash flow drivers. We're going to look at cash flow forecasting. We're going to look at your profit drivers and your strategies for the current environment. That's my goal here. Now, this is, again, further to what I just said, this is a huge topic. So the goal here is for you to sort of go, okay, I need to look into that more or that more. And all the tools I'm talking about here today, you're free to have access to them. Just let me know after this if you want any of the tools that I cover. But let's dive into it. I want to make sure we keep us on time. So let's talk about cash flow for a second. A little bit of numbers theory. So firstly, cash flow is not profit, right? So we get stuck a lot of times when our accountant gives us the P&L at the end of the month, quarter, year, and it shows a number. Hopefully it's a good number. If it's a good number, we go and celebrate. If it's a bad number, we go and commiserate. But then we look at our bank account and we say, well, where is that money? So first thing is profit is a theory. So a profit is a series of promises, and cash is reality. Cash is what's actually going on. And within that, there's often this cash gap or this cash conversion cycle that goes on with your business. So why doesn't profit equal cash? Profit is merely a bunch of promises. I'm sorry, your P&L represents promises. So when you give someone an invoice, it's a promise that they're going to pay you. So, and likewise, when someone gives you a bill, it's really a promise that you're going to pay them. But all those promises get filed into your accounting system as invoices and bills, and they show up at the end to show, hey, if all these promises get kept, here's what should happen. But then, it's a question of timing. So cash is the reality of all of those promises. So let's take a look at how that might show up in terms of cash gap. And I'm going to use a business that has inventory. If you don't have inventory, then maybe you can put labor in this category, because sometimes it shows up the same for labor. But let's say you do carry inventory, and on day 0, the stock arrives, and you've got 30 days to pay your bills. So on day 30, the cash goes out of your bank account. Now, let's say you hold that inventory for 60 days. So it sits on the shelf, wherever it is in the warehouse, for 60 days, and then you sell it. So the goods are dispatched on day 60. But to hopefully exaggerate the example, you take up to 60 days to collect the cash. Now, your cash went out on day 30 and it's coming back in on day 120. So that represents a 90-day cash gap in your business. And if hopefully this is an extreme example, but if you had labor, it might be the case where you're doing a project for someone. Let's say it takes you 60 days to deliver a project and you're paying employees and all that time, the same principle applies. So our goal is obviously to minimize that cash gap, find ways to bring that a lot closer. And we're going to cover off on that. So back to cash flow. There's 3 major components of cash flow that will cause a difference between what you see in your bank account versus what is on your profit and loss. And the first part of that cash flow is called operating cash flow. This is one that most of us are familiar with. This is the buying and selling of things in your business. So collecting money from customers, paying suppliers, and paying your team, and paying for inventory. But then we've got investing cash flow. And investing cash flow is buying and selling assets. So if you need to buy a truck, or you need to buy some racking, or you need to buy a new desk, whatever it is, depending on, usually greater than $500. Although in our current environment, we've got some nice tax write-offs that allow us to expense a lot of that. But sometimes there are large, it could be real estate, it could be large expenses that don't show up on the P&L, but they certainly show up out of the bank account. And the last one is financing cash flow. This is where we borrow money or pay back money, or we draw money out in dividends or as an owner's draw. So those sorts of things don't show up on the P&L. So these are movements of cash that can cause a change in the bank account, but don't change the P&L. So looking at the operating cash flow, there's 3 major things that we want to look at. And I'm going to show you this in the form of an example business. Just keep the numbers easy. We're going to use a business that's doing $1 million in sales. So we're saying they're doing $1 million in sales. They've got cost of sales of $250. So if they were selling books, for instance, for $1 million of sales, the books cost $250,000. That would probably be very, very nice if you're selling books. It'd be a lot less than that probably. Their expenses are $650,000. That's the rent, the utilities, all that sort of stuff. So they're left with $100,000 in profit. Now, on their cash flow side, we're going to look at three things. We're going to look at accounts receivable, we're going to look at accounts payable, and we're going to look at inventory. So let's say their accounts receivable and their accounts payable or inventory. On accounts receivable, if at any one time they had $125,000 in collections to be made from their customers, that would mean their current collection rate, it takes them 45 days on average to collect their invoices, their receivables. And I can share with you all the formulas about that. Actually, just to be a little, I have a book called Jumping Off the Hamster Wheel, and my goal here is not to plug in my book or tell you going to buy it, but I'm going to tell you that all the stuff I'm covering is explained in a lot more detail in the book there, including access to all the tools I'm going to reference. So if you want that, feel free. Don't know, Philippa, if you've had a chance to have a read yet. So back to our accounts receivable, what if we could reduce that to 35 days? What if we developed a better system for managing our receivables? And that would mean that our receivables would go from being $125,000, they'd go to $96,000. So that's a change in cash of $27,000. Same in payables. What if on average this business had payables of $60,000 at any one time, which would mean they take 24 days to pay their suppliers? What if they took that to 35 days? Now, I'm not suggesting you just stop paying people, but there's ways to negotiate these things. But if they could do that, it would take their payables to $86,500, right? Which means they've just got a cash gain of $26,500 just by tweaking things. So they're not making any more sales right now, but at the moment they've just created $50,000 in cash in their bank account by changing these two things. And inventory, if they were holding about an average level of $60,000 in inventory, it means they were holding about 88 days worth of inventory in stock at any one time. What if we could get that down to 65 days through a bit of analysis, better buying patterns? That would bring their new inventory levels to 44.5, which would mean an extra $15,500 in cash in the bank account. So with all of these added up, that business has an extra, sorry, I've got a adding error there. It's more like about $72,000 in extra cash in their bank account versus suppliers, customers, and other suppliers. So, sorry, sitting on the shelf in terms of inventory. So just tweaking our cash flow drivers, our operating cash flow drivers, without even thinking about buying and selling assets or the financing side of things, most businesses can tweak this area quite extraordinarily. All right, so the next stage, that's the first thing, how to tweak the operating cash flow drivers. The next one we want to talk about the sleep at night tool. This is probably one of the biggest, best tools in terms of managing your business, managing your cash flow. So what this looks like, and this is a little intimidating, right? Warning you, it is a spreadsheet. If you're not a numbers person, then it can be a bit, but what it's showing is that you got money coming in. So this is actual collections up the top here. And look, depending on your business, these might be pretty big numbers, but you know, just doesn't matter whether it's this many zeros or half as many zeros, the principle is still the same. And then you've got all the ways that money comes out. Now, the goal of this is, it might look like a profit and loss statement, but it's different in a couple of ways. One, it's got, you can see down the bottom here, it's got different, it's not too clear on the PowerPoint there, but it's got some car loan payments there, which would be principal repayments that wouldn't show up on your P&L. So it's got payments coming out there, equipment loans that don't show up on your P&L. So this is actual cash coming out of the bank account. And the way this works is that you have a starting point of cash, 75,000 in this case, and then it adds up the cash you're going to collect, all the cash going out that month, and then it gives you an ending balance. And you may not, I mean, this one's a 12-month one, but you may do it for 6 months or 3 months. And you might even do it weekly. If you're really tight on cash flow, you might run this weekly. And what it enables you to see is that when you're going to run into cash problems, and you might be thinking, Jamie, I'm always running into cash problems. Well, if that's the case, it's amazing the peace of mind you can get when you can see how things need to change. So in this example, right, we can see in the next 6 months, we're going to have a minimum cash balance of 100,000, no, 50 next month. If we needed to pay, buy a piece of equipment, for instance, say we need to buy a piece of equipment that was $100,000, we're going to plug that in there somewhere. We might quickly see we haven't got the cash to do that. Or we might say, okay, we've got some corporate tax payment there. Maybe we can get a tax plan on how to manage that tax payment. Or maybe we can finance it in some way. Or maybe that client's payment that was due in 3 months' time, maybe we can bring their work forward and get paid sooner on that. It allows you to play with this and move the numbers around to a point where it works, or at least it helps you understand what's coming down the pipeline. And I find clients that do this and run this kind of system, their stress levels are massively decreased, because when we can't see what's going to happen in the future, not to say that's a certainty, but when we have no idea what it's going to look like in the future, we make up all sorts of stories in our mind and we start to run from a point of panic and fear, escalating levels of severity, but it just, again, affects our state, right? And when we've got all these what ifs running around in the head that are usually based in, not the greatest logic, then it just affects things exponentially. So this tool, as much as it helps you sleep at night, it has a flow-on effect. Just a smart cash management, reducing your levels of stress and anxiety. So it's a tool that I think is immensely powerful. And again, you can have access to that. I've got templates and instructions on how to walk you through that, videos and all kinds of stuff there. So feel free, if you want a copy of that, no problem at all. Now, a couple of quick cash flow strategies. Number one, speed up collections. We've talked about that, the operating cash flow. So you can provide incentives if need to. Sometimes just having a more robust collection system is better. Clearing out old inventory. If you've got stuff that's been sitting on the shelf, blow it out. Sell obsolete or unused equipment, or stuff that's just not that practical anymore. It could be cash just sitting there in that. Changing your debt to interest only. It could be renegotiating or refinancing things. There are some great deals going around right now in the financing world. If you've got unencumbered assets, you can put financing on those. Not a great long-term thing, but can free up short-term cash. Negotiating longer terms with suppliers, flash sales, like quick promotions on things. If you've got something sells well, or something that you want to sell well, you can create promotions around things. It might be a timely thing in our current environment. You might be able to partner up with other businesses to have complementary offerings, but promoting focused flash sales. And ordering less, ordering more often. That's that inventory management side to reduce your cash. Look, I was hoping to go through with you today our profit model that compounds profit, and I am going to do it, and I apologize, I'm not going to do it justice because it's going to be quite fast. But what I'm going to cover you through is, I'm just going to stop sharing the screen here. I'm going to run you through, show it to you in a spreadsheet where I can throw some numbers in. So, bear with me, share. Okay. So what we've got here is a spreadsheet that shows profitability down the bottom here. And just look at this column to start with. Your profitability is made up of, every business is made up of this formula. And what this formula shows you is 6 key areas that you can directly affect to exponentially affect your profitability. Every business is going to be different to the degree they can affect these areas. But when you see the model, you'll know for you which is the area where you'll be able to get the biggest gain. And hopefully there's a few areas But I'll show you what happens when you affect each of the areas just a little bit. So to explain the model, we've got, if you have all of your customer base and you look at how much they spend on average throughout a year, that's this one here, that'll give you your total sales. Your total sales times your gross profit margin gives you your gross profit, and you take your gross profit, subtract all your expenses and overhead, that gives you your net profit. All right, that hopefully makes sense to people. What if we want to increase our number of customers? Everyone likes to do that. Well, increasing customers is done in one of two ways. Either we do it through our existing customers, getting more of them back. So that's looking at our number of existing customers, and then looking at our retention rate, or how many do we retain versus how many do we lose. And we can also increase our customers by getting new customers, and that's where it tends to be where most people focus. Well, that's through increasing our number of leads or inquiries, or improving our conversion rate on those leads or inquiries. So this model here, you can see I've got some numbers, right? This business has a database of 400 existing customers. On average, 40% of them buy again in any following year, which means they've got 160 repeat customers. This business generates 300 leads in a year, and they convert about 30% of those, so they get about 90 new customers every year. So their total number of customers, if we add the 160 plus 90, is 250. And then a customer spends on average $2,000. Some spend more, some spend less, but on average it's $2,000, which gives them a total sales of 500,000. Their margin is 40%. If they were selling books again, that means that the books cost 60% and they get to keep the 40% to pay for their overhead and provide profit. So their gross profit is 200,000. Overhead, rent, utilities, insurance, all that sort of stuff, wages, might be wages, 190,000, which means they've got $10,000 left over. So what if, just putting small changes in each of these areas, what effect might that have? Well, let's say we can improve our retention rate just by 10%, meaning we get 10% of our customers back. That might be through, communications and promotions. It might be showing the love a little more. What if we could improve our lead generation by 10%, more cohesive marketing? We have some strategic alliance. We have a referral program. We have better channels on how we promote ourselves. We get better quality leads in, which hopefully improves our conversion rate. We get clear on our uniqueness. We have a guarantee, our sales process, whatever it may be. There could be lots of ways to increase those things. Again, I'm going through this quickly, but I want you to see the effect of the numbers so you can understand the power of the model. And believe me, we've got a toolbox of about 250 different strategies that comprises under each of these numbers that we pick and choose from, depending on the business. But let's say we can improve our average spend by 10%. And our margin, let's just go 5% on margin. So margin goes from 40% to 42%. On the right-hand side here, you can see how these numbers are changing. So with these changes so far, our revenue, total sales, has gone from 500,000 to 626. Gross profit up to 42%. So now our gross profit's up to 263,000. What if we could just trim our costs just a little bit? Let's go 2% on that one. So we've gone from a business that's turning $10,000 in profit to one that's turning $77,000 in profit by what I think you'll agree are just very small changes, just 10%, a 5%, a 2%. These are tweaks, right? We're not doubling numbers here. We're just small changes has an exponential effect on the bottom line. So what is it for your business? Like, where is the gain for you and your business? What are those areas are going to give you the gain? Now, I hope all that makes sense. If you've got, we're coming up to the hour here, so if you've got some questions at all on this stuff I've gone over, please throw them in. Let's go back to the slide here. So this was just walking you through that 6-point model. I jumped straight to the numbers to make sure we got to that. So I think the numbers bring a lot of context. So the black dots here I've got sort of represent the order that we would typically look at, how we'd go after these things. We wouldn't try and do them all. we'd certainly start with margin and overhead first. Then we'd probably look at repeat customers. Then we'd probably look at spend per customer. Then we'd probably look at conversion rate, and then lead generation last. Simply because lead generation is usually spending money. It takes a lot of time and effort. And all these other things we can often do with no spend at all. So that's the reason there. Of course, every business is different. So I don't want to suggest for a second that that's the way you should approach it. That's a very general approach. So some quick profit strategies. Number one, stop discounting. That's the biggest killer for small business. Increase prices. Right? If you have a margin right now of 30% and you increase your prices by 10%, you can afford to lose a third of your sales and your profit stays the same. Versus if you discount by 10%, you've got to increase sales by 50% to make the same amount of money. So know your numbers, right? And those two can work wonders for you. Add-on sales, that's increasing that spend per customer. You've already got people in. What else can they be buying? What else do they need? And we've got negotiate, right? Negotiate your largest fixed costs and expenses. Eliminate waste. And lastly, conversion rate. So measure your conversion rate right now. And if you just start measuring it, I guarantee it's going to go up. I quickly mentioned a few strategies here, but again, the book, if you're interested, there's tons of strategies in there and more explanation around the 6-point model. So you can get that. You can get it at bookstores. You can get it online, whatever you like. Team, that is it. I'm going to make sure we're off on time. That is the major content here. I have a question. Will this webinar be available to watch again? It is. I'm recording it. I'll find somewhere to host it and send it out to you. I can certainly do that for you. And look, I feel like I've tried to cover a lot, so I apologize if it's been, some of these concepts do require time. And so if you need more, then I'm, happy. Well, let me show you. If you would like more and you want, there's benefit to you understanding more, I am happy to give you some of my time. A couple of caveats around that. I offer a 90-minute strategy session where we look at your goals and your current state of your business. And in 90 days, 90 minutes, I will give you a clear pathway on how you can achieve your goals. So you'll be able to sit there and go, okay, so this is what we're going to do. It won't have all the detail there, of course, not in 90 minutes, but I will be able to bullet point. This is, I guess, one of my core skills is to be able to flush out the key components that you need to have in place for your business. If you'd like to do that, we're going to look at some things like cash flow, profit model analysis, marketing and sales, team and hiring, systems technology, your time allocation and leadership. So if you would like that, fire me off an email. My email address is jamie@salesup.com.au. Throw in the subject there, book me in. Tell me your name, your company, and your mobile number, and we'll find a time that works for you to get that into in my calendar. And I guess a little warning there that there is a bit of work for you to do leading up to that. I'm happy to give you my time. I expect you to do a little bit of work before that as well, so we can make sure we get down the nuts and bolts when we get together. But at the end of that, you'll be very clear. And obviously, if you want to explore what it's like to work with me, we can cover off that too. There's no expectation that's going to be the case though. But certainly, if I see where I can help you, I'll show you what your options look like. Thank you so much for attending. Look, our time is precious, and the fact you've invested an hour, I really appreciate it. I hope you got something out of it, and it has been a good use of your time. And I'll send out the recording so everybody has access to that. All right. There is a question actually. For those that want to stay on, I'm going to answer Philippa's question. Offering referral discounts. Is that a part of what we should do, or is there another way? Is there a cost for your 90-minute session? Thank you. No cost. It's my gift. It's a way. I mean, people obviously find out in that they would love to work with me, and I do get clients through that process. But there's, again, no expectation that's going to be the case. If it turns out we're a great fit, well, great. But if not, then I'm happy to help. The referral discounts, look, that's a hard one to answer off the cuff because I don't understand your business and what might be the pros and cons. There's a concept of lifetime value of a customer and a concept of acquisition cost, knowing how much it's worth paying to get a customer. We've got to understand those numbers, and sometimes that can make sense. It also depends around the perception. Some products and services lend themselves to incentives. Others, it's a bit insulting. So it's really finding what the best mechanism is for your customers, your product and service, and what makes sense with the numbers as to what mechanism you might be. I've got about 5 different mechanisms that I draw from depending on the business to make referrals work. So yeah, happy to cover off that in a session if that would be helpful. All right. There are no more. Oh, thanks, Colin. Best hour you spent all week. That's great to hear. I'm glad that worked out. All right. I'm going to wind up here, folks. Thank you very much again, and we'll speak to you again soon. Stop.